Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Viewers, today we are going to take a little break from Pakistan's own politics and we are going to focus on India's, especially because India keeps on violating the LOC and every time it does, it claims that it has magically seen some terrorists sitting across LOC. That is interesting because every time it spots some alleged terrorist is the day when India is going into elections. This is astounding. We have seen similar kind of situation, especially Pulwama, Balakot and rest when India was going for national elections. Now there were, state elections, and just before that, India starts pounding LOC, and then it claims that it has destroyed, certain terrorist camps. Pakistan has been fighting India in whichever way India chooses, and therefore Pakistan decided that propaganda has to be answered with truth. And the DGISPR took the foreign ambassadors to LOC and various places, and even invited the Indian ambassador or high commissioner to come and visit. He has not showed up yet. So what exactly is going on? That is important. Then we know something else happened in the US standing committee, a committee on human rights actually took cognizance of the matter in the region, and especially Kashmir came up. We are going to talk about that as well. The fact is that somehow, while Indians are facing the similar kind of circumstances that Kashmiris are, but Indian diaspora, despite being very moderate, liberal, self-assumed, secular, keeps on supporting Narendra Modi's narrative, and that is astounding. We are going to take stock of all these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by a very eminent panel. With me is Rana Javed Saab, a senior expert on foreign policy and international relations. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan Saab, an expert on foreign affairs, also a pedagogue. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Asif Durrani Saab, a senior ambassador, regular on this show, and writes also, has his own podcast as well. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Rana Saab, I have to start with you and I have to ask you, when is the world going to see what India is doing?
I think, Farooq, you have said something very interesting, which I haven't heard for a long time, that you said that Pakistan responded India's propaganda with the truth. And India cannot stop because India is using rhetorical devices or all those what they can do in information warfare.
Right.
But the problem with Indians is, as you said yourself in intro, that they cannot stand the truth, and exactly this fabrication and crafting of false flag operations, one way or the other, they use their domestic politics, and whenever it suits them, if there is a big trip coming to Pakistan, some dignitary is coming, they would create an incident. If the things are bad in terms of India's own economy or something, they would need a diversion and they would attack, like they have done it for the past weeks and months on line of control, cross-border, firing on civilians. So I think what we are doing at the moment is, like the ISPR took these ambassadors and defense attachés on the ground and showing them the facts. I think this is the number one strategy. It's a very good strategy. The second thing is, we do not know that India would stop, and I'm not sure India would.
Right.
It has to stop by international law and continuous struggle of our diaspora, our media, our government, and the policy, continuous struggle against their hegemonic and the way they have designed their to coerce Pakistan from all angles. Like they use economic angle, they use diplomatic and the military angle. So it's a comprehensive coercion. We need to counter that, actually, I would say, at all levels.
We have to counter that, but Dr. Saab, the question right now is, we have seen that international media has taken cognizance of what is going on in Indian occupied Kashmir. We have seen lawmakers actually taking notice of that as well. What we don't see is a liberal democracy stepping ahead and actually taking charge to India and asking them that if you claim yourself or you call yourself to be a liberal democracy or a secular democracy, why are you not taking care of human rights in Kashmir?
Yeah, this is exactly true. And, this realization of late, though belatedly, has really occurred.
Right.
And occurred to the extent that Indians have become baffled, really speaking. And the congressman and even the Assistant Secretary of State,
Yeah.
Ms. Alice Wells, also has been expressing her serious kinds of reservations and concerns about the human rights violations. She is trying to say and has just said that United States is trying its best to convince India to restore the services like phone services and
Yeah.
internet services. So this is
But
something.
if you have followed Alice Wells' deposition yesterday, her statement was more encouraging towards India, that finally India has started moving. And my frustration is India might be pretending that it is relaxing, it is not.
It exactly. I mean,
Relaxing
and
the country.
nevertheless, I mean, the bottom line is that concern is there. How much India has been moving in this direction? Yes, you are absolutely right. But one thing is great, really, that for the first time you see, I mean, Mahathir Mohamad speaking openly, and it was said by India that please take back your statement. He said, no, we think very wisely, in a very calm and composed manner, and we don't take back our statements.
Right, but India stops imports from Malaysia.
That's right, but
And
I
same
think
goes for Turkey.
a statesman like Mahathir is going to digest it, no problem. But the point is that the top world leaders, including the ones which are in the West, and United Nations Secretary General and men in the United States, they are now openly stating it. And this is something, and I mean, this also has come that now that you have been doing it, we do not consider you as one of the world biggest or strongest democracies.
Right, especially because Indian government has suspended democracy practically. It has suspended
That's
the
right.
Kashmir's rights.
That's right.
And then the constitution partially.
That's right.
And then Supreme Court of India fails to take notice of the matter either. Let me bring in Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Saab, we have seen how the world reacts, for example, to the situation in Hong Kong, right? We have seen even regarding this decision to pull out troops from Syria when Kurds are, exposed to possible attack by other countries, even then the world actually speaks up. And we are talking about major powers speaking up. That doesn't seem to be happening with Kashmir. Why not?
The reason is that the Western world, especially led by America, is now it's again a sort of a revival of the Cold War period.
Sir.
Here now we all know about the Quad, which is U.S., Australia, Japan, and India, aimed at blocking China. So if in such a situation, when we say that India is going scot-free, so it is quite meaningful. Reason being that India is a market, and it's being seen as a market. For instance, French, they otherwise in the international arena, they have been taking independent stances. For instance, when President Bush wanted to attack Iraq in the Security Council, they tooth and nail opposed French. There the question was that they had to in fact establish their credentials as a power to be reckoned with, political power. Here, French are silent. Reason being, they have just sold a Rafale aircraft to the Indians.
So our country that gave us French Revolution and then gave us the basic understanding of human rights, that can suspend its understanding of human rights when it comes to economic interests.
So we are watching it. It's in front of us. That
So
French.
when tomorrow they are going to talk about human rights violations elsewhere, how will the world digest it?
So it depends how the world, the shape of the world is at that time. So it is here now. My basic contention is, with regard to Kashmir, it's Kashmiris and Pakistanis who have to fight the actual battle.
Right.
At the propaganda front, it will happen. For instance, Taliban, they had no international, supporters or all that.
Right.
It's the United States now. It has decided to withdraw. Reason was it's now the longest war for the Americans in their history,
Right.
which they have fought. Here in Kashmir, it's now 7 decades, and for the past 3 decades, Kashmiris are seeing worse kind of repression they have seen. And then now, as late as 5th August action taken by this Modi government, in fact, they have been just, they are like another Auschwitz concentration camp.
Right.
They have been just cornered. They are incommunicado from the world.
Yeah, they are.
So in this situation, what will be left? Now I have here and there I have read that now these Kashmiri youth are attacking the Indian troops. Those who have been put in the concentration camps.
Okay.
So they are in ones and twos. They are taking on the Indian troops.
Right.
So this may flare up. This may, and this is what.
This is one aspect, one way of looking at it. There's another, Rana Sahab, and that is, you were talking about strange things happening whenever something big is about to take place, right? Foreign visitors are coming. We saw 6, and then later on it actually transpired that it was a false flag. And Pulwama also, the man who blew himself up was actually in their own custody.
Absolutely.
Is there a possibility of brainwashing and then egging people on to actually go and explode themselves so that they can have some kind of false flag?
Yeah, this is actually, there was a project they were running, we call it Double Doctrine. One of the project they had it, they would take the young Kashmiri youth outside and put them in different universities or education, and they would brainwash them, of course. They would try
Or
to
blackmail them?
Blackmail them because they would kidnap their siblings, and that's what they're happening. A younger sister, younger brother, they would take them in, and then they would, not only, they will literally blackmail them and then convince them to do certain things. In that case, if you remember this, this guy had a history. He was in custody. And obviously, they must have done something extraordinary, which they do. Most of the youth at the moment, is completely blackout in Indian occupied Kashmir. In my personal view, I would say that the best thing happened to Kashmiris is, number one, once the curfew is lifted, the thing which you said positive, the taking cognizance of this repression and oppression by the United States, and I totally agree with you that this Alice's, it didn't go, it fall short actually.
This time,
this time it falls short. Otherwise, she has been
quite vocal,
vocal. And we also have seen that even President Trump, despite all the choreography which was done by the Modi's entourage, they still did not manage him to again say the same thing which he said before. It is because the President Trump, there is maybe the market economy, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But very recently, there is a big article written by former Major General Special Forces Major General Shaw in England, in a very big, Spectator. And he actually clarified and literally quantified, assessed things that why it is important for the world to look into Pakistan's successes, gains, and try not to destabilize, because otherwise, whatever happening in Afghanistan, Durrani Sahab was saying very correctly, the Taliban didn't have a support, but the US had to withdraw. India would, it's my assessment, has fallen in its own trap. And it would hurt India. It has already hurt their economies on to under 5.
But Rana Sahab, here are 2 concerns. I think in the long term, India might be hurting itself. But right now, what is happening, the sights and sounds that are coming out of Kashmir, for a country like Pakistan that has been fighting terrorism, extremism for quite some time, it has a radicalizing effect. You and I, when we talk to the youth, they say, why don't we do anything about it?
I totally agree. This is the fact.
Yeah.
And this is
the second aspect, which is frightening, is in the past, at least India had the decency of going for a false flag operation, perhaps. Now they don't even need that.
Right.
Whenever there are elections, they just start attacking the LOC and then claim that there were terrorist camps there.
I'm really glad that you brought the first point. First, let me say that. It is actually catch-22, but at the same time, the government's statements, the Prime Minister Imran Khan's very categoric statements, it's the state which takes the responsibility to respond and retaliate to Indian aggression, not the individuals, not the groups. That has strengthened Pakistan's stance because we are following the international rules and regulations. And this statement of Prime Minister, very clear statement, has given, literally given a breathing space to the government policies as well. On the second point, I would say that you're right. I mean, they have been attacking, and so many times the Indian, envoy has been called to the Foreign Office every single day because there have been killing of innocent civilians, and we have seen countless that they have made sure that the population from that area just disappears. And of course, India's this belligerence and the plan to go further than these is also of great concern today. And our hope, but my hope is that the international community should intervene and at least tell India that if, I mean, God forbid, if something happens extraordinary like they have done in February, and they get the response as they deserved. And we do not know, because at that time Modi was to elections. This time he has settled down. He has taken one big step, and now we don't know what he wants to do.
No, but what happened day before yesterday was there were two elections, right? Haryana and Maharashtra were going to
going to be election, yes.
At that time, the army starts actually doing this.
And same mantra repeated.
And amazingly, Dr. Saab has a point. Army chief, India's army chief, his term in office is about to expire on 31st of December. He is going to be elevated to the post of a newly minted post of CDS. And there, if he is going to be, chosen, the TORs and age relaxation TORs have to be written by Ajit Doval. So army is also playing ball. Now, when you
actually, army has taken control of India, I must say. This army, RSS and army, they are together now.
Or perhaps RSS has
taken over the army. I think this would be even better construction, yes.
So, where is the autocorrect? I mean, democracies usually have autocorrect. Why does India not have one?
Well, Patafi Saab, it's a matter of great disappointment that a country like India, which though had its own point of views on Kashmir and the related matters, has gone to that extent where diversity of the opinion has literally gone. And those Indians who still are the people of conscience, you see, they're still there. We must salute them, I would say. They are very, very, very few, but nevertheless, they are equally worried as we are here, and the rest of the world is there. So democracy,
we don't have any skin in the game, actually.
Autocorrect, democracy is autocorrect. Now RSS just been talking, and this extremism, ultra nationalism. So autocorrect has, I would clearly say, has been reset, and democracy is going in that way where you see majority has become blind, and they are saying that we have won the elections with a big margin, and now we are going to do it democratic way, but in a way which is very inhuman, which in actuality is undemocratic.
Dr. Saab, here's the concern, right? For 2 months, Indian Chief Justice has been kicking the can, down the road repeatedly, just to ensure that he retires in peace and the new guy actually takes care of Kashmir. 8 million people are suffering. A democracy's Supreme Court cannot take cognizance of the matter. The parliament, when it passed the law, everything was rushed. People were sleeping, they were out of town, and they made this law, right? Election Commission of India, totally gone. people are accusing Chief Election Commissioner of compromising on every principle. Is it some kind of democracy now?
India has, under this government, has made a very, very big compromise on its overall impression as a democracy, overall impression as a secular country, overall impression as one of those which was emerging in this part of the world as a very important regional country. It could have done that a little gracefully. But the way they are bulldozing everything in the name of democracy, they are defaming democracy.
And don't get me started on the media.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the media
So
is like
this is-
push button media now. You push the button and everybody starts praising Narendra Modi. It is amazing, right?
I am very clear that in the longer run, it's going to be a big loser.
Yeah, but in the short run,
Short run,
we
it
keep
is
on,
making a problem.
It
we
is.
have to face the
Yeah.
antics and semantics. Ambassadors have raised the concern. Earlier, you said that because of COAG and other aspects, India is now Western ally. And India is supposed to contain or help West contain China. Tell me, why was that choice made?
Well, there is a reason, because China-India rivalries has been there at
Of course,
least for
but
the
what
past.
distinguishes India from China?
Well, the main is the rivalry, which they already had it. I don't fully understand the import of your question.
I'm
And,
actually going to come back to you, sir, and I'm going to qualify the question. But Dr. Faisal, the spokesman of Foreign Office, has joined us on telephone. Dr. Saab, thank you very much for your time. Sir, the government of Pakistan extended an invitation to Indian High Commissioner to come and visit LOC from our side. Have they accepted it so far?
Actually, just for correction of record, we
Yeah.
invited the Sharjah affair. There is no High Commissioner because of the tenth relations. The relationship is downgraded. And I called him in day before yesterday, and I asked him that if he would like to accompany the diplomatic corps and the national and international media and guide us where exactly are those quote-unquote launch pads that his army chief has claimed that he had exact knowledge of. And if they somehow were not able to accompany us, they could give us the coordinates and we could share it with the diplomatic corps and media and take them there. So there was no reply. There has been no reply from them so far.
Right. Now, what happens now, sir? Are we going to hand some demarche or keep on protesting?
Of course, we will protest whenever the next ceasefire violation happens, but for this ceasefire violation, the Indian claims are clearly exposed. There were no launch pads. We took the international community, diplomatic corps, international media, local media, and we let them roam around in Joda Bazaar. It's a small town. And actually, we encourage them to have a conversation with the local people, the children, the women, and get their own feedback and check if there was any activity which could be termed as training or terrorism or whatever. And they were able to see firsthand that about 5 or 7 shops I myself saw were completely destroyed, burnt down, and about 25 to 30 houses completely destroyed, and many more which were damaged. And the firing started Sunday night 10 p.m. and it continued until 4 a.m. Monday morning. And it was such a huge attack that people in Muzaffarabad could listen to the explosions. It was quite a heavy attack.
Right. Dr. Saab, the kind of arsenal India keeps on using, especially you called this matter to attention that they have been using cluster weaponry as well and other things. What is recourse available to Pakistan? Can we take the matter to some international forum?
We will be raising all these violations, use of weapons which are not permitted as per international law at all relevant forums. we do send a complete list of all ceasefire violations every year to UN Security Council. The Foreign Minister writes a letter to the President of Security Council and the Secretary General of UN, where our folder is there. And because of these facts, the Jammu and Kashmir dispute remains on the agenda of UN Security Council. We will continue to do that, and we are exploring all other options. Of course, all such attacks are replied in a befitting manner on the same day, but we refrain from initiating any such actions from our own side. All
Right.
our actions are in retaliation.
Right, Dr. Faisal, spokesman, Foreign Office, thank you very much for speaking to us. Let us come back to the studio and let me take the question that I was actually, earlier asked. Sir, I mean, both of you are sitting. One day I decide one of you is going to be my enemy and the other one is going to be my ally. There must be some distinction. There must be some characteristic that must have appealed to me. And therefore I decided this. What are those characteristics that move India closer to the West and China away?
Patafi Saab, it's actually the common interests which bring you closer to each other, or which you push you apart if the interests clash.
Okay.
And here, India's interests now, in fact, coincide with the Americans.
Which is?
Which is that they have to
contain China.
compete with China. Yes, they have to compete with China.
And the West is not worried about one day containing India as well?
Well, it depends that how it will transform itself.
Okay.
And the West, they live as per the interests, how they generate.
Right.
Right now, the West.
I was actually hoping that you are going to say that because India claims to be a democracy and China doesn't. And the West decided that,
No,
look,
if
democracies come together.
No, if that's the case, then I'm afraid many of the Gulf states are not democracies.
No, that is
but they are the allies.
Okay, they are nature allies, right?
So the question is, it depends what kind of interests are we talking about.
Money?
Of course, trade, yes.
So who is richer, China or India?
No, right now China, but China, that's why it has become a competitor.
Yeah.
That's why there's a trade war between China and the United States.
Right.
That's why now there's a tussle between China and the Asia-Pacific region.
Right.
That's why the Quad has come into being.
Right.
So,
But on one side, of course, going back to the clash of civilization thesis and many other value systems that were proposed, the concern at that time was that China is something alien. It is going to pose a threat to the West, and India might be an ally, right? Now India is going down the same path. It is becoming more and more anti-West.
Well,
their
now
own
this-
internal dynamic is changing. The
India is
democracy
not
going out of the window.
India is not at all anti-West. It never was.
RSS, sir.
well,
they keep on talking about the purges to take out English from their curriculum, their
Well-
culture, Christianity, everything.
Well, that is for the time being. But again, it is Mr. Modi who subs with the Americans.
Yeah,
who-
that's another
right.
beef.
So it is the
That's a
duplicity.
beef I have.
It's the duplicity which has always been there, and the Hindutva, in fact, first they would want to consolidate their gains inside the country.
Right.
Now we are talking about 80% of the Hindus, but they are not a monolith. Hinduism itself is not a monolith,
Yeah.
and
Brahmins,
there is no
Kshatris.
equality in the religion itself. But without going into the
Nuances of the
details and
religion.
nuances of the religion, the issue is that Hindutva's psychology is based on certain fixed values, and that is that you have to create the dominance of the Hindutva forces.
Right.
And that's why when RSS is leading, but there are other subsidiary flanks of the RSS, which are, for instance, Ghar Wapsi, or coming home. This is a slogan where they want to
Especially,
reconvert the
people,
Muslims.
People keep on looking at what is happening, the Ghar Wapsi in UP.
Yes.
They don't see what is happening in Odisha, where actually Christians are being converted en masse.
Same
into
everywhere is. So it's Ghar Wapsi means that those who converted to other religions are to be reconverted.
Right.
So this is a kind of, they are creating a fear psychosis in the country.
Right.
And for that, occupied Kashmir is an example. Reason being that the Kashmiris have been alienated from India.
Right.
So it fits to their scheme of things that they suppress the Kashmiris more in order to make them an example elsewhere in the country,
Right.
especially for the minority and more especially for the Muslims.
Yeah, these tactics are important, and that's why I wanted to actually call attention to this fact that somehow India, the India that West fell in love with, perhaps the rest of the world also, is changing so dramatically that people now openly talk about bringing down the Taj Mahal because it is essentially a Muslim building, right? The question is, if the West thought that India is going to be their ally and China is going to be an enemy, just because India is a democracy or it is a capitalist country, China is becoming more capitalist now and India is becoming less democratic now. So how do you actually
I
figure
think
this?
it's a supreme dichotomy, basically. The first of all, Chinese model is very clear. China's design,
represents.
it's very much economic security.
Right.
And their assets, strategic assets, as expanded from Holland to Delta area in Nigeria. Their oil fields they are seeking, employment they are generating, and so much so that the United States owes around 1 trillion or so to China. And on the Indian side, the economic superiority or the commercialization or the outsourcing which started occurring in after the fall in the Silicon Valley in mid-90s,
Right.
all these software specialists, all these people who are settled now in Bangalore, Hyderabad and all these places, they are now in trouble because there was no discrimination at the time.
Right.
At this moment, those who are, as you referred to, the Christian reconversion and the Dalits as well, the Sikhs and all minorities, Assam almost, a couple of million Muslims are, almost 2 million Muslims are being now basically stateless.
Yeah.
So these things will be accounted for international community in due course, and it won't be that long. The reason being is that the international markets are also considering the way their economy is going down and the way the image, the India's image, which was created and constructed, in so-called,
It is shattering, right?
it has shattered.
And the amazing thing is, if you want to go to Indian market,
Right.
you go there not for the cheaper labor because
Right.
cheaper labor available elsewhere.
Elsewhere, yes, in Vietnam now these days.
You actually go for consumption.
Right.
And this government, Indian government, actually takes decision, demonetization,
Right.
and kills the demand.
Right. And that is what
Purchasing power of the common man.
that's what I'm saying, that the Modi's anti-India, it's a bit maybe ironic, but it's Modi's that anti-India which the West romanticize with.
Right.
That romance has ended because the Hindutva ideology, their trajectory is completely the opposite. And not only the Taj Mahal, but all other monuments, all the roads which were, Muslims ruled for more than, all these years, thousands of years, and they have done a remarkable, Shashi Tharoor actually basically, he was on the BB in some channel and he was saying on that one that the highest level of literacy and the economic strength was during when it was ruled by Muslims.
Which day was it of the week?
Yeah,
Because
think, yeah.
Shashi Tharoor Sahab changes his
Yeah, he
tone
changes.
every
No,
2 days.
I agree with it. But on this account, he actually leveled charges against British.
Yeah, and there are charges against him of
Yeah.
murdering his
Oh,
wife.
oh, yes,
and that's
yes.
why Hindutva government has a hold on him. He's a
I
great
totally
intellect.
agree with you that at times he changes stances because he maybe has to protect his skin dramatically, 180 angle. But on this account, I would say that it is responsibility of those very slim minority which is left. In so-called democracy, we have seen from writers to all those film stars, singers, all those Muslim entities and Christians. I mean, if you remember, they burned in Australian missionaries, their family, and they lynched them, and it has continued.
if you go to Modi's court and kiss his seal,
Yes, right.
then you are safe. Otherwise, you are
Yeah,
not.
I totally agree with you.
That is
Absolutely.
amazing. But sir, I was having, Dr. Saab, I was having this sense of deja vu while I was talking about China, India dynamic, and especially West aligning with one to contain the other. It sort of reminds me, takes me back to 1920s and 30s, when Soviet Union was considered a threat to the West. And at that time, perhaps they allowed Nazis to grow because they are going to contain the Soviet Union. And eventually it turned out that it was actually Nazis who were posing the
Who were
threat to the
posing the
West,
threat.
and they ended up killing 6 million people. Are we heading in the same way?
Yes, I mean, nothing can be ruled out in this kind of a situation. I'll like to recall one statement of one ambassador of United States to India way back in 50s, and he said that, and I'll relate this to China and India thing, that choosing between Pakistan and India was a matter of simple mathematics. United States' first love was definitely India.
Right.
But when Nehru didn't play the ball with USA
And
over the
Indira
Cold
too.
War,
And Indira
they had to rely on Pakistan.
Right.
Now, indeed, there is this, and I'd like to add here, sir, that not just trade, but United States and much of the West has ideological connection also with India. They have strategic as well. It is just not, and a value system, it's just not trade. I mean, you have to see their connection with India and the regional
Can you
as well
qualify
as
the value system that you're talking about? What value system?
value system is that India and the United States of America, they are almost in one direction as far as I would say the westernization of the culture is concerned. Not the modernization, but the westernization of the culture.
De-westernization of India is taking place as we speak.
But
Their minister
then
says
this
that
is-
they are going to rip the textbooks
this-
out.
I would say,
No,
I would
no, no,
say,
no.
I would say not the value system, maybe strategically, yes.
No, value system is also there.
Because
I mean,
American
this
value
is
system
all,
is quite
all
the
a
opposite.
facade.
When you said value system, I immediately thought that common faith in democracy, in
No, not that.
constitutionalism.
And the treatment of equality.
I would like
in
to say
human
it
rights.
in the cultural sense. In the cultural sense.
How?
You know,
I mean, India is so different from the
So
West.
different.
Even the
No,
cultures
Look,
are
the
different.
Dalits,
well,
Dalits,
I think you have not been able to pick up my point.
Yeah.
I want to say that there's a great deal of westernization in negative sense as well as the the apparentness of some of the Indians,
The
the
facade
symbolic
of
Indians
modernity.
are concerned.
Right.
But so there's this touch indeed there between, this is a common factor between the two. So you cannot deny that, despite the fact that RSS here today, but the long-term mentality of the Indians is on the way towards the westernization in culture. So now,
Dr. Saab,
another
might
thing,
I-
just a minute, ji, just a minute.
I have another question.
Okay, please.
Sir, 20, 30 years ago, or even back in 1947, when India and Pakistan were created, Pakistan perhaps didn't take cognizance of the fact that it had a Muslim extremism problem that kept on growing, 70s, 80s and onwards, and then we had to lose so
so
many
70s
people.
we had a good, 70s we were very good. I
Yeah,
if
by
you
the
look
end
at-
of 70s,
yes,
right?
70s we were,
Okay,
60s,
then
70s were very
but
modern.
in 1948, Belcha Bardar actually beheaded an Ahmadi. So a similar kind of situation kept on increasing. Pakistan had a Muslim extremism problem,
By the way, our,
which we
our
confronted.
first foreign minister was
An Ahmadi, and
yes.
yeah. But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we confronted that threat, and finally, we are making peace with the new realities. In India, there was a Hindu extremism problem in 1948. RSS existed. The Indian state kept on denying it, and today they have staged a coup and they have taken over the entire state. Now it is not in secular state of India; it is RSS state of
Extremism
India.
And it
is
was
one
banned, by
thing.
the way. It
Yeah.
was banned when
Many
he
Many
murdered.
times.
Extremism is one thing, but what about the cultural outbursts there in India for over the decades? So there is no denying the fact that the benchmark there is still the same. But I would like to downplay this for a while and would like to state that yes, there is this thought in the United States and the West that their real competitor in the negative sense is not going to be India in the long run. It is going to be China. So therefore, they have been trying to balance it off, and that's it. I mean, they would have the Chinese, for example, they would have good trade relations with India.
Right.
But China's strategic relationship with India is not going to be that much
Right.
at all. So this is appears to be a little dichotomy also, but this is something which is at the cross purposes.
And then I was thinking that while we are talking about dichotomies, we have to talk about dogmas as well.
Yeah.
Somehow in international relations, it
Rightly
has
said.
become a dogma
Rightly stated.
that people think that India is going to be an ally, even if it becomes Nazi state. Tomorrow they are going to change.
Which it
the
is
Ashok.
actually, which it
Tomorrow
is.
they might change the Ashok Chakra with the swastika, and the world is going to be an ally.
No, which already exists.
Which already exists, yes. RSS.
Swastika already exists.
And the
in-
uniform as well, uniform,
in the,
combination of the
in
uniform.
the RSS's ideology, and they very much identify. Well, here I want to underline what Dr. Saab has been saying, that Hitler was a Western ally before that, before his election. So was the Mussolini. But ultimately, it turned out that he has, once he got majority, an absolute majority, so then that's how the Nazism,
It can happen here as well.
got birth.
And Nazi didn't have nukes.
And
They
then
didn't have AI.
Then it
And
became
they
a
have
threat to the whole of Europe.
Right.
So here, this is the danger, that this Nazism, Hindu Nazism,
Right.
has taken birth.
And
And
we
now
have
it is growing. And it has already taken roots even in the Indian armed forces. That's why their Army Chief General Rawat, he's speaking actually RSS language. Once you go
And
through
parading
his
with a
statements,
monkey on
of
his
course,
shoulder and all.
never before Indian armed forces chiefs indulge in this manner, in a political, they would not speak the political
Right,
language.
and that is a very important point, sir. I'm told that we have to conclude the program here. Ambassador Saab, with as learned people as all three of you, I wish the program could continue for hours, but we have dearth of time. Ambassador Saab, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan Saab, thank you very much for your time as well. Rana Athar Javed Saab, always a great pleasure having you in the show. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. We began by discussing Kashmir and why the world powers are not taking cognizance of the matter the way they keep worrying about Hong Kong and various other parts of the world. And then we had to actually come back to the argument, the core argument that somehow India is going to be an ally of the West, and that's why we have to actually accept India for whatever it is. But here's the point. We have to keep challenging all the dogmas. This has somehow become a matter of faith rather than a critical thought. Why somebody has to ally with whom? Whether we have to actually ally with one country to counter another, or whether we have to start believing in collective security and common goal of human rights and human progress. That is up to us. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.